I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to write about something so raw, but here I am. Maybe it'll help someone else recognize the signs before it's too late. Or maybe it's just a way to get this off my chest. Either way, I need to tell this story because it's been eating at me, and I want to get it out into the open. It all started on what was supposed to be our perfect anniversary trip. My wife, Lisa, and I had planned it for months, a weekend away at a cozy mountain resort, just us. No work, no kids, no distractions. We booked a nice hotel, the kind with a big bed, a view of the woods, and that little jacuzzi tub I knew she loved. I was excited, thinking about spending quality time, reconnecting after a hectic year. We arrived late Friday night, everything feeling smooth. She was in a good mood, laughing, making small talk about how much she needed this break. I remember the warmth of her hand as she squeezed mine when we checked in. I never saw the cracks coming. That night I had a strange feeling, like a little pebble in my gut. Maybe it was just the nervousness or the alcohol, but I kept noticing her phone buzzing on the bedside table. She'd glance at it and quickly hide it when I looked her way. That wasn't unusual. She was glued to her phone sometimes. But something about the way she kept stealing glances at it, like she was hiding something, didn't sit right. The next morning, I decided to check her messages. Stupid, I know, but something about her attitude felt off. I figured I'd just look for a second, see if she was talking to someone else. I didn't expect to find what I did. Her phone was unlocked when she went to the bathroom, and I saw it sitting there, vulnerable. I didn't hesitate. Scrolling through her texts, my stomach clenched tight. There were flirtatious messages, emojis I'd never seen from her before, and more troubling, a message from her to someone named Tom that read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Our secret's safe with me." My hands went cold. I stared at it, like the words had turned to ice in my veins. My heart pounded so loud I thought everyone in the hotel could hear it. I felt a rush of heat rise in my chest, anger, betrayal, confusion. She'd been hiding this from me, right under my nose. I looked at her key while she was in the bathroom. Her purse was on the chair, her phone in her hand, unguarded. I sat there for a long moment, feeling the world tilt. How could she do this? During our anniversary trip, with my best friend. My mind spun, trying to process what this meant, what she'd been hiding all along. I looked around the room, saw her suitcase in the corner, felt the weight of 1,000 questions. When she came back to the room, I kept my face calm, though my palms were slick with sweat. She looked at me, a little nervous, maybe sensing I'd found something. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Who is Tom?" Her face went pale for a second, then she tried to brush it off. "What are you talking about?" I didn't buy it, not for a second. "Tell me the truth," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "What's going on?" She hesitated, then finally broke down. "It's nothing." She mumbled, "Just a stupid message. It doesn't mean anything." I could see the lie in her eyes. I wanted to believe she was telling the truth, I really did. But I knew better now. I knew everything. That's when the wheels started turning in my head. I didn't want to lose her, but I also didn't want to be a fool. I needed to think this through. I needed a plan. She crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I remember feeling the cold dread settle into my chest, but also a strange sense of clarity. I stood up, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "I need to think. Don't call me, don't try to explain. I'll talk to you tomorrow." Then I grabbed my phone, stepped out into the corridor, and left her standing there. As I walked away, I could feel my stomach twisting. The smell of the pine from outside mixed with the faint scent of her perfume, sweet, sickly, and wrong. I knew this was just the beginning of something much darker. I'd found the betrayal, and now I needed to figure out how to respond. Did I want to confront her right then? No. I needed time to plan, to get my head straight. But inside, I knew this wasn't going to end quietly. I spent the next few hours walking around the hotel's quiet hallways, trying to calm my nerves. The cold stone beneath my feet and the faint hum of distant conversations were the only sounds accompanying my pounding thoughts. I kept replaying that message, that moment I saw her secret words. How could she have been so careless, so reckless? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her smile that used to make me feel safe, now twisted with guilt and something else I couldn't quite place. I felt my fists clench every time I remembered how she dismissed my questions with that trembling voice. That nothing, she kept repeating. Yeah, I'd heard enough. I needed evidence. Something concrete I could hold in my hands, something that would tell me how deep her betrayal ran. I decided to check her phone again quietly when she was asleep. She'd gone to bed early, probably exhausted from the emotional she'd just put me through. I slipped out of the room while she was snoring softly, her body relaxed, unaware of what I was about to discover. I found her purse on the chair, unzipped just enough to see her phone inside. I took a deep breath, steadying my shaking hands, and unlocked it. What I found made my stomach turn again. There were dozens of messages, mostly exchanged with Tom, photos, flirtatious comments, plans to meet. I saw the hotel reservation they'd made for that night, an entire separate booking under her name. She planned to meet him in the hotel's lobby, probably after I'd gone to sleep. I stared at the screen, feeling my world shatter piece by piece. How long had this been going on? Days, weeks, years. The realization hit me hard. I'd been blind, trusting her, thinking we were happy. Meanwhile, she'd been sneaking around, conniving behind my back. Because I was furious, I decided to take full advantage of this moment. I took screenshots of everything, texts, reservations, photos, and stored them on my phone. I needed proof, yes, but I also needed to think about what I was going to do next. The next morning, when she woke up, I was already packed my bag. I didn't say a word. I knew I'd have to confront her soon, but I wasn't ready yet. I just looked at her, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest, then quietly left the room, not saying a single thing. I stayed in the lobby, watching the fog roll over the trees outside, trying to breathe. My mind was racing, trying to figure out the best move. I wasn't planning to just walk away without something in my hand. If she thought she could cheat on me and get away with it, she had another thing coming. I knew I couldn't stay silent, not anymore. I was going to confront her face to face with everything laid out. But I also knew I needed a plan. Something calculated, something that would hit her where it hurt without making myself look desperate or vengeful. Late that night, back in the city, I sat in my apartment, going over everything I'd uncovered. I realized that her betrayal wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice she'd made. A choice that I wasn't going to forgive lightly. I had to make her understand that I wasn't the one who had messed up this time. I decided I'd give her one chance to come clean. If she confessed, maybe there was some way to salvage what we had. But if she didn't, or if she lied to me again, then I was done. Finished. I'd hit her back with everything I had, no violence, just that cold, calculated revenge that would make her regret ever crossing me. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything that had just happened. The betrayal, the deception, the lies. And deep down, I knew I'd be the one to choose how this ended. I'd been a good husband, but now I was figuring out how to be the one who finally fought back. As I drifted off to sleep, a plan was already taking shape. I just didn't know how far I'd have to go to make her see she'd pushed me past the point of no return. Would she come clean? Or would I have to push her until she did? Either way, I was done being the fool. That much was clear. The next few days felt like walking a tightrope. Every time I saw her, I could feel my jaw tighten, my fists clenched. Without even realizing it, she tried to act normal, maybe even pretend like nothing had happened, but I could see right through her. The guilt hung off her like a cloud. I kept thinking about how I wanted to handle this. Did I confront her openly? Or did I wait, gather more evidence, and then drop the bomb? Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. I couldn't just yell at her and ruin everything right away. I needed her to feel the full weight of what she'd done, a slow, deliberate unraveling of her lies. One night I decided to meet her in our favorite coffee shop. I sat across from her, feeling every nerve in my body on edge. She looked nervous, maybe sensing I was about to say something big. The air between us was thick, heavy with unspoken words. So I started, voice low but controlled. "You've been lying to me for how long?" She fidgeted, eyes darting around like she was trying to find an escape route. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "Really? Because I found out you've been texting Tom behind my back, planning to meet him during our anniversary trip." "How is that not what I think?" She looked like a deer caught in headlights. "It's complicated," she said, voice trembling. "It meant nothing. I didn't mean for it to happen." I cut her off. "You think I'm stupid? I saw the messages, the reservations, the photos. Do you think I'm just going to forget all that?" Her face crumpled and she looked like she might cry. I was tired of her lies, tired of feeling like a fool. I knew I had to do something drastic, something that would make her realize the game was over. Later that night, I sat in my apartment going through everything I'd collected. The messages, the photos, even her bank records, money she'd sent Tom, receipts from the hotel. I'd built a case. My mind was racing with options, but I kept circling back to one, exposing her to everyone. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I was going to call her bluff. I'd tell her I was done, that I knew everything, and that I was ready to end things. But first, I needed her to admit everything herself. When she came home that evening, I was waiting. She looked nervous, maybe worried about what I was going to say. I kept my composure. "I want the truth," I said. "Are you really going to keep lying, or are you finally going to be honest?" She looked like she was about to crack. Then she whispered, "I was stupid. I didn't think it would go this far." That was the moment I knew I had her cornered. Her words confirmed what I already knew. She was guilty. Now it was just about what I'd do with that. I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots and receipts. "This is everything. Your little secret is out in the open, so tell me what's next." She looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she mumbled. "I never meant to hurt you." I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. She finally admitted it, but that didn't erase what she'd done. I knew I had to act quickly now. I'd been patient long enough. I told her to pack her things. I wasn't going to keep her living under my roof while she lied to my face. I didn't want her to think she could just walk back into my life after this. Not anymore. As she packed, I thought about the next step. I was done trusting her, done pretending everything was okay. I decided I'd give her one last chance. If she wanted to come clean, she had to do it now, honestly. When she handed me her keys and left the apartment, I felt a strange emptiness but also a surge of clarity. I finally saw her for what she was, a liar, a cheat, someone I couldn't trust anymore. I knew I'd have to be careful, but I was ready. That night, I changed my locks, moved her things out, and documented everything I'd uncovered. I felt a cold satisfaction, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted to be done with her lies. I sat alone in the silence of my apartment. My heart still hurt, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I realized that sometimes the only way to end something toxic is to cut it completely, and that's what I did. No more playing nice. No more pretending. I was finally free to move on, because the truth is, if someone cheats and lies, they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. Not anymore. The lesson: trust your gut. When there are red flags, don't ignore them, or you might end up losing much more than you bargained for. After I handed over her keys and watched her disappear out the door, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The house was suddenly too quiet. No more her voice, no more her scent lingering in the air. I had expected anger to overwhelm me, but instead, a colder, more measured calm settled in. Still, I knew I wasn't done. That fire inside wasn't just about revenge. It was about making sure she understood she'd crossed a line I'd never tolerate again. In the days that followed, I threw myself into planning my next move. I knew she'd try to contact me, maybe to explain, maybe to apologize, maybe to guilt me into taking her back. But I wasn't interested in excuses. I wanted her to understand that her betrayal had consequences, and I was going to make sure she felt them. I spent hours going over every piece of evidence I'd collected. The texts, the reservations, the bank records, they all painted a clear picture. I also contacted a lawyer just to get advice on how to handle the aftermath. I wasn't planning to press charges or anything drastic like that, but I wanted to know my options. Sometimes, a little legal leverage can be surprisingly effective. One thing I did was change all my passwords: email, bank accounts, social media. I didn't want her sneaking back in, trying to manipulate or spy on me. I also blocked her number and social media profiles. I didn't want any accidental contact. That was a surprisingly liberating step. I felt like I was reclaiming control piece by piece, but I wasn't just going to sit around waiting for her to make the next move. I wanted to send a message, clear and unmistakable, so I drafted a letter, not a long, tearful apology, but a straightforward statement of facts. I wanted her to know I knew everything, that I wasn't going to be fooled again. It read, "Lisa, I know about you and Tom." I saw the messages, the reservations, everything. I trusted you, but you betrayed that trust in the worst way. I've moved on because I deserve better. I hope you're finally honest with yourself about what you've done. This is the end." I printed it out, signed it, and left it on her pillow at the hotel where she'd gone. I didn't want to waste more time. I knew she'd try to spin her story, maybe even apologize again, but I didn't care. That letter was my final word. A few days later, I got a reply. It was via email, weak, pathetic, full of excuses and apologies. She claimed she was confused, that it was a mistake, that she loved me and didn't want to lose everything. I read it and felt nothing but disgust. That's when I realized I'd reached a pivotal point. I had two choices: forgive and pretend like nothing had happened, or cut her out completely. The truth was, I'd already made up my mind. I was going to cut ties for good. So I drafted a simple message back. No anger, no accusations, just a firm statement. I appreciate your apology, but I can't ignore what's been done. I need time and space to heal, and I won't be in touch. Please respect my decision. I hit send and sat there, feeling an odd sense of closure. I knew she'd try to come back, maybe with more tears, more pleas. But I also knew I couldn't let her manipulate me again. I had to stay strong. That night I packed up her remaining things, just a few keepsakes she'd left behind. I took them to the trash, an act of finally letting go. In that moment I felt lighter, like I'd shed a heavy burden I'd carried for too long. When I look back now, I realize this was a turning point. I learned that trust isn't something you give blindly, and betrayal isn't something you should ever tolerate. It's painful, yes, but sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and knowing you're better off without someone who doesn't value you. If you're facing something similar, here's my advice. Don't be afraid to cut out the toxicity. Be honest with yourself, gather your strength, and walk away. Because no matter how much you love someone, if they cheat and lie, they've already abandoned the relationship before you even knew it. Nothing good comes from staying in a betrayal. The real victory is reclaiming your life and dignity. And that's exactly what I plan to do. A week or so had passed since I sent that final message, and honestly I thought I'd feel relieved, maybe even a little victorious. Instead, I felt this strange emptiness that I couldn't quite shake. It was like I'd closed a chapter I didn't want to read anymore, but the scars still lingered. Every time I'd think about her, about what she did, a knot would tighten in my stomach. I kept replaying the moments, the signs I missed, her lies, the final confrontation, and wondering if I'd done the right thing. But I knew deep down that I had. Staying would mean accepting a betrayal I couldn't forgive. Moving on was the only way to find peace. Still, I didn't want to be naive. I knew I'd been naive before, trusting her blindly, believing her when she said it was nothing. Now I had to be smarter, more guarded. One thing I did was focus on myself. I threw myself into work, started working out again, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected. The process wasn't easy. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at her old messages, feeling that sting of betrayal all over again. But I also realized that the more I ignored the pain, the less power it had over me. One night I sat alone in my apartment pouring a glass of whiskey when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hey," a familiar voice said. It was Tom. My stomach clenched tight. I didn't want to talk to him, but a part of me needed to hear what he had to say. "What do you want?" I asked, voice cold. He hesitated. "Look, I know I screwed up. I never meant to hurt you. I was stupid and I was weak. I thought she loved me, but I see now I was just a fool." I kept quiet, listening. It was strange, the way he sounded, like he was genuinely sorry, like he finally saw the truth. I wondered if I should call him out, tell him off, or just listen. "Honestly, I regret everything," he continued. "I know I can't fix what's happened, but I want you to know I'm sorry. I hope you find happiness, real happiness. You deserve that much." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. "You're sorry now?" "Too late for that," he sighed. "Yeah, I get it. I just wanted to say I'm genuinely sorry. Lisa was wrong about a lot of things about us, about herself. Maybe she's going to tell you that I pressured her or whatever, but the truth is I was just as stupid. We both lost something real, and I hope you find someone better." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to rip into him, tell him how much he'd hurt me, how I'd never forgive him, never trust him again. But a bigger part of me just felt tired. Tired of the whole situation, tired of the betrayal, tired of pretending I was okay. "Thanks for calling," I finally said. "Stay out of my life from now on." After I hung up, I sat in silence, staring into the dark. That call didn't erase the pain or the betrayal, but it did remind me that I wasn't alone. That even in my darkest moments, I had people who understood how it felt to be betrayed by someone they loved. It also made me realize that revenge wasn't just about hurting her anymore. It was about reclaiming myself, my dignity, my trust, my future. I knew I had to do more than just cut her out of my life. I had to heal. I had to rebuild the trust I'd lost in myself and in others. That meant not rushing into anything new, not blocking out the pain, but facing it head on. So I started therapy. I reached out to friends who knew me well. I reminded myself of the good things I'd overlooked, my strengths, my passions, my worth. The process wasn't easy. There were nights I'd lie awake, replaying everything, feeling that old hurt. But with each passing day, the hurt became less sharp, less consuming. It turned into a memory I refused to let define me. And now, I'm at a point where I can look back and say that I learned something vital. Betrayal hurts, but it also reveals who you are. It forces you to confront your limits and pushes you to grow stronger. I'm not fully healed yet, but I'm closer. I'm moving forward, one step at a time. The biggest lesson I can give anyone in a similar situation is this: don't let betrayal turn you into someone you're not. Trust yourself to heal, to grow, to move on. Because at the end of the day, you're the only one who can truly decide your future. And mine, I promise, is brighter without her. It's been a few weeks since I completely cut the ties, and honestly, I've never felt more alive. The house is quiet now. No more her footsteps, no more her voice. I've turned it into a space that feels mine again, filled with things I love and have neglected for too long. I can finally breathe, really breathe, without that heavy weight pressing down on my chest. Looking back, I realized that the betrayal taught me more than I ever wanted to know about trust, loyalty, and myself. I learned that it's okay to feel hurt, to be angry, to want revenge. Those feelings are human. But ultimately, the only thing that matters is how you respond. Staying silent or pretending everything's fine doesn't make it go away. Facing the truth head-on gives you control, even if it burns at first. I keep telling myself that I'm lucky. Not because I escaped her lies, but because I finally saw my worth. I was willing to stay and forgive, but she pushed me past the point of no return. And honestly, I'm glad she did. Because now I understand I don't need someone who cheats and manipulates to be happy. I've learned to depend on myself first and foremost. Every day gets a little easier. I go to work, hang out with friends, focus on my hobbies. I still get flashes of the hurt, but they're less intense. I remind myself that I'm better off without her, that I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who values me, not just when it's convenient. I've cut out the toxic ties, and it feels like I've finally started to breathe again. If there's one thing I want to leave with anyone reading this, whoever might be going through something similar, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags, and don't let guilt keep you stuck. You are not responsible for someone else's choices. You're only responsible for how you handle them. When the betrayal is too deep, remember that walking away might be the bravest thing you can do. Revenge, I've learned, isn't about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your strength and dignity. It's about showing yourself that you're worth more than their lies. That might mean leaving, blocking, or just walking away from a toxic situation. Whatever you choose, do it for yourself. Because in the end, the only person you need to prove anything to is you. So I close this chapter with a simple truth: I'm better now, stronger, more aware. And I know that no matter what happens next, I won't be again. Trust isn't given lightly anymore, and betrayal, it's something I'll never tolerate again. Thanks for reading my story. If there's one thing I want you to take away, it's this: never let anyone steal your peace. You're worth defending, worth loving, worth trusting, just not at the expense of your own happiness. Keep that in mind, and you'll come out of it stronger than ever.